Hey everybody, I'm back and our family does have a pretty big update. So I'm going to show you guys something and some of you might understand right away what this update means. And for everybody else, I will share with you in just a second. So what does this mean? It means that we do not currently have a foster placement, and that's why we can show you this room. This is our kind of designated foster room. When we don't have a child or a teen placed with us, this room is pretty bare. We can, show you how we set it up, how we kind of make it a blank canvas. And then when a child comes in, we personalize it. We make sure that it feels very much like a reflection of their personality. And it's pretty typical that when we say goodbye to a placement that has been with us, it's very typical for me to just close this door to this room and try to avoid coming into here because you get so used to what it looks like and what it feels like with that particular child in your home and in your family. And so it takes adjustment, it takes getting used to. There's very much a transition for everyone involved when it comes to foster care. We've always been really open about sharing what our experience is like when it comes to this journey. So to be really real and really raw, it really sucks. Like, it really sucks to walk into a room and, see how bare it is and to be reminded of the fact that that child isn't with you, because you do get attached. That is the point. You care so much about these children, their families, their stories. If you aren't getting attached, then don't really think you should be doing this. But yeah, so yes, it hurts. And also, you're the grown-up, you're the adult, you're signing up for this. And so it's important to give yourself time to heal and process the transition. It's not a matter about not getting attached. It's getting attached and being prepared to go on that transition and that healing process afterwards. And like we always say, it doesn't have to be goodbye if you're building a relationship with the family and that child, and depending on the circumstances, it's very likely that you will remain in contact with them. That's something that has been true for us for most of our placements. And part of the reason why I haven't been posting videos, we kept you guys updated a little bit, and we're providing some updates when we did have a placement. Honestly, there was just a lot that was happening, and our main focus is always on our family, and you guys are always so respectful and understanding of that. And once this placement moved on, to be honest, I wasn't ready to share what I was going through. In this video, I am going to try to focus on what this experience has been like, where we're at right now, talking about reasons why kids might move on, because there's various scenarios that can come up. And also the impact on you and your family when you have a shorter term placement or a longer term placement that is coming and going, and what that transition looks like. And also, I'll just take a little bit of time to share with you my reflections and lessons learned. Every placement, every child, every family, every situation, there are opportunities to grow and learn. And so just reflecting on some of that, and hopefully you guys can take that and it will help you in your journey. So when it comes to a child coming and staying with you, and then it's time for them to move on, there's a number of different reasons why that is going to happen. So number one is going to be reunification with their primary family. And we say primary family because it could be their birth parents, it could be adopted parents, it could be grandparents or aunts and uncles. Families look different. And so, saying their primary family, the family that they, came from before your home, that's the language that I choose to use to try to be the most inclusive. So reunification, they've been taken from that family, they've been placed with you to care for in that interim time, and then it's time that they return back because, whatever the reason for removal, that has been resolved and that family has gotten support and resources so the children are safe to return home. If reunification is not an option, and there are reasons for that, then permanency looks different. You could be looking at placement with other relatives of that child. So that would be either adoption or guardianship through family. If you are a foster family that is also licensed to adopt and it is a good fit for the child, and that's a path that they want to go on, you can also look at adoption and guardianship and have that child stay with you, but that actually wouldn't be a goodbye. So it doesn't really apply to this situation, but that is I guess like a case plan option. Alternatively, if you are not the right family for that child for the long term, then it could look like, adoption or guardianship to another family. There also could be a removal due to an investigation or an allegation on your home, whether you did something wrong or were accused. This can happen. It's not something that is as common, I think, as people like to say. Everyone is very quick to share their story, like, oh yeah, that happened to me, and then make it seem like it happens everywhere and everybody knows of someone who has had that happen. But I would really like to look at the data and look at the numbers of placements that have allegations versus not have allegations. It's important to understand that yes, children could falsely accuse, but we do want to believe them and see that through. So you could be accused of something and you might not have done anything wrong, or you weren't aware that you were doing anything wrong, and ultimately it could lead to the county who has guardianship over the children. They could decide that it's in the child's best interest to move to a different foster family. They also could have identified kinship. They could identify family. So you could have these kids dropped off, and in a couple of weeks, in a couple of months, family can step forward and say, oh, you know what? We've done what we can. We're ready. They can come stay with us. And then, that's what's best for them. I'm trying to think of other situations where you're going to be saying goodbye to children in care who are placed with you. If they're old enough and they're ready to move into a place of their own. So if they're, 18 plus and, they feel like they're ready and they want to move on, that could definitely be an option. And as a foster family who is helping them into the quote unquote real world, very much it should be your responsibility to help them identify resources and support systems where they're going to be set up for success as much as you can. I do know that there are foster families who, once the child is out of their home, like, they're done. And that should not be common. We should not use that as a standard. Being a foster family, you're opening up your family. So take that into consideration as you go on this journey, and just ask yourself, am I willing to support a child who is aging out of the system, even if I'm not getting a stipend, even if I'm not getting a check from the county or the state helping me support them? Am I willing to have them a part of my life and be committed to their success? Another situation that could occur is that might not be an allegation or anything like that, but the county might decide that your home is no longer the best support system for that child. And so they will identify a different family, or maybe they need more services than were originally identified. And so they need to move them into a more supportive environment. And again, that could happen when a child is removed. You don't always have all of the information. You could have triggers in your family or your home to where it's not your fault. It's not anyone's fault. It's just nobody knew that you would be up against that. So that's another option that you might come across when you take in a child and then you're saying goodbye. And if I've forgotten any, I know that there's a wide range of situations. So if I've forgotten any, definitely drop them in the comments and share. And also, I think it's important to mention that depending on the length of the child staying with you, can have different impacts. And it's not good or bad, or one's better or worse than the other. It's just that they can be different. Every child, every circumstance is different. And so just be prepared for different impacts, because we've experienced both longer term placement, roughly 18 months, and we have had short placements of 5 weeks. I think that in my opinion, if you're doing this right, even those shorter term placements, like, you are pouring into them from the jump. Like, as soon as they come to you, you're giving everything to them. You're just giving your heart. You're making sure they're comfortable, they have what they need. And it's not like, oh, you have to stay with us for 6 months before, we finally open up, or, we get you the poster that you were wanting to hang in your room, or, you know, fill in the blank basically. So again, I feel like when a child comes to you, there should be no qualifiers. Yeah, you may not know if they're going to stay with you a few days or couple of years, you know, even. And in my experience, I honestly feel like the shorter term placements are the most difficult to transition in some ways. So when you have a longer term placement, you create this like normalcy within your family. Your family has created this huge adjustment, and you have a new family normal for a really long time. And so when a child or children move on in that situation, your world kind of changes again. But it honestly feels a little bit slower from my experience. There's a slower transition. You kind of can prepare yourself. In the shorter term placements, what I've experienced is it's very abrupt. Things happen very quickly. So you're diving in right away, and then before you know it, before you can get into kind of like a normal routine, and we're saying goodbye, and you're transitioning again. So it feels more like a whirlwind. And so that's been my experience, and I'm interested to hear other people's experiences who have had like longer term placements and then the shorter placements, what your experience as a caregiver is. When it comes to lessons learned with this most recent placement, I have to be really careful and very vague, because I want to share the things that we learned about ourselves and where we are in this journey, but I also don't want to share too much that would share any part of their story. And of course, our agency is reviewing our videos, and so if you see any weird cut here, it would probably be that I was having to cut out something that I maybe shared too much. So just keep that in mind if the cuts are a little rough. But what I'll try to say about the lessons I learned with this placement is the reality was that it was a shorter placement. So it definitely did feel like a whirlwind placement coming in, and then before we may have anticipated, we were saying goodbye. And every placement has a unique story, unique trauma, unique experiences, and, you know, personality and all of that. And so you learn about yourself and you learn about others through this process. And with this particular child, there was so much that I learned about myself, about strength that I had. I'll also try to share that this probably was one of our more challenging placements. You know, every child family case comes with unique, you know, circumstances. This time we were really drawn to support this child. We would not have changed anything, but also, yeah, we learned some things. We were extra flexible. You know, I had to, you know, take time off of work. You know, different placements require different things from you, and so this was one I think that stretched us a little bit, and I would absolutely do it again, and we will do it again. So I'm sharing that just to say that sometimes, you know, when you get a placement call, you're weighing all of the things, really look at it as you're not going to know what to expect. You never will. But really, like, what can I learn? How can I grow from this to be a better caregiver for kids to come? I also learned, I don't know why, like, I'm getting emotional about this, but this was the first placement, like full placement with our new county. I don't think I've ever felt so supported by a case team. You know, you have multiple, you know, professionals supporting the child and supporting you. So there were a lot of like hands, you know, involved. And I can't say one bad thing about anyone during this placement, and everyone was very involved, very communicative. I was just incredibly shocked because previously, like, we would have a really great caseworker, but we weren't getting support from, you know, this area or that area. And this was one where it really felt like everyone was working together and everyone had the child's best interest at the forefront. So those are my lessons learned, and just wanted to take some time to share with you guys where we're at, and hopefully sharing this process of saying goodbye to another placement will support you when you come up against it, or if you've been going through it and you feel like you're alone. You're definitely not alone. And also I'll go back to like lessons learned. There were definitely times where I had to call somebody up. For me, it was actually Brittany, Foster the Teens, and just call her up, totally vent. And it was a safe space. She's a licensed foster caregiver as well. We share similar values and similar, experiences. And I knew that she would be that support system. Like I can't just call my sister who is not necessarily in this work, but with another licensed foster caregiver and being really selective, it felt safe to call and say, oh my gosh, this is what I'm going through. Like, should I be feeling this way? Like just kind of all the range of emotions that we go through, and to feel validated in all of that. So also just like a lesson learned is like, know who you can go to, like have a person to go to for support. But anyway, so that is really what I wanted to share as far as like what we have experienced with this most recent placement as they have left our home and our family. And also we're kind of still in a little bit of a period where we're providing respite, we're open to respite and emergency placements, and we're coming up on the time where we're ready, or we feel like we're ready to take on a longer term placement. So that could be in our future. We'll just have to wait and see. There's some other updates that I'm going to share with you guys, and I'm ready to get back into making videos and sharing our journey and just sharing our family and what we're up to. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Appreciate all of your support, and I'll see you next time.